the BlackBerry Z30, the biggest phone the company has made to date. Let's see if a big phone means it's a big upgrade. Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Carlos with Wirefly. But before we start this review, I just wanted to say thanks to our friends at BlackBerry for sending this phone for review. We received no compensation for this video. Looking at the device, the first thing you're going to notice is the big Super AMOLED 5-inch display. Unfortunately, it's not a full HD display, it's only 720p. Nothing too exciting or with crazy numbers of pixels, but it's decent. If you guys want to hear more about the display, you guys can check the video I made about it. I will link it down in the description. If we keep looking at the front, we can notice that gray chin on the bottom, which could be good because that tells us which is the bottom of the phone. Now this phone of course runs BlackBerry OS, which has nothing to do with Android or iOS, and it's pretty good. I have to admit, I was a bit skeptical about the phone's OS, but after a few days I got used to it and preferred it over the Windows Phone. It is fast and very responsive. If we keep looking around the phone, we can see that the back of the phone has a sort of carbon fiber look, but it's a bummer that it's not actual carbon fiber. It's more of a rubber type material. It feels good in the hand and it's not going to slip off your hands that easily. If we take a stroll around the phone, you can see that in the right hand side of the phone is the volume rocker. Those are the top and the bottom button. The center key actually activates voice command, which is not even close to Siri or any other voice commands in other smartphones, but I mean, it does a decent job. Not very useful since you can't really tell commands. I usually just search for stuff on the internet. On the bottom of the phone, there's nothing there. You can just see the little grill for the speaker, which I'll talk about a little later. The left hand side is where the ports are at, so you can share your media in your big screen TV. It also has a USB port. The USB port can be used to charge the device. It can also be used to plug in a USB drive so you can see your pictures, your music, all in your device. Finally, on top you get your 3.5mm headphone jack and your on and off button. I personally don't like the button being on top since it's a bit hard to reach. Since this phone is a bit big, I can only imagine people with smaller hands. The phone is 5.54 inches tall and it's 0.37 inches thick, and it comes in weighing exactly 6 ounces. It's a decent sized phone, but I think that is a standard size now for any phone. Now if we talk processors, this phone does not have a lot of horsepower under the hood. It's running a dual core 1.7 GHz processor and a Snapdragon chipset. Even though it does not have a super crazy quad core processor, this does not mean that this phone is slow whatsoever. It is still a very snappy and responsive phone, but those Galaxy phones might sound attractive with their quad core with crazy numbers, but this phone does have 2 GB of RAM to help with all that multitasking. If we turn the phone around, we can see the removable back. Or is it removable? I had to literally pry with all my strength to get the back of the phone to come off. Once the back is off, you can see that there is no removable battery. But it's a really decent sized battery. It's a 2880 milliamp battery that should last you more than a full day with a single charge. I'd say more like 2 days. I think that's one of the places where this phone shocked me. I was able to get the phone for 2 days completely with light to moderate use and still had some juice left when I plugged it into charge. Also on the back of the phone is the micro SIM slot and the micro SD slot. The phone's internal memory, which is 16 GB pre-installed, can be upgraded up to 64 GB. Also on the back of the phone is the 8 megapixel camera, which is not the best. You cannot tap to focus. If you tap the screen, it's because you want to take a picture. The picture quality is okay. I mean, you cannot compare it to other phones with better sensors and more pixels than this. Low light pictures are bad, and let's just say it's not the phone's strongest side. Although it's pretty fast at taking pictures, but sometimes doesn't focus on the item correctly. The video is also decent and it shoots 1080p video at 30 frames per second. It has image stabilization, but the image quality could be better. Lastly, on the back of the phone are the stereo speakers. They are facing the back, but they get pretty loud. If you lay them on the table, it won't cover them up. It would actually bounce off the surface and make it louder. And just want to throw it out there, it has a 2 megapixel front facing camera. That is just that, a front facing camera. The pictures again are okay, and it can record video at 720p at 30 frames per second. When we start talking about software, that's where some people may think it's outdated or that it's going to be slow, but I beg to differ. Like in all BlackBerry products, the keyboard is awesome. It's such a great keyboard and it has some shortcuts while you're typing in it. It supposedly helps you finish a word and makes you type faster. To some people it may be useful, but I didn't find myself using it that often, even though it is a good feature to have. Also, the web browser is pretty decent, and it's one of the few mobile devices that still supports Flash. It's a full HTML browser with Adobe Flash Player. And well, there are other things like Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and other things that could be expected on a BlackBerry phone. After all, BlackBerry phones have always been used by mostly business people. The OS is responsive and does not bug out or get laggy at all. I also like the feature of not having a physical button on the front of the phone, and it just makes it look cool and sleek. Having no home button in the front means you can just swipe up and it takes you to all the applications you have open. You can press the little X in the corner to exit the application, or you can just leave them there. The only downside to all this is the BlackBerry's App Store. It feels like you're going back in time. You cannot find some of the most popular apps, and that's where this phone takes a steep fall. And while yes, you may be able to get some of Android's applications in this phone, they are still not natively BlackBerry's applications. I think if BlackBerry could get some app developers on top of this, it could change the game a bit, but I think it's also a bit too late. Remember I said earlier that it didn't matter for this phone to have a quad-core processor? Well, this phone can actually multitask how it's supposed to be done. You can open up a YouTube video and leave it playing in the background. Meanwhile, you can go to Facebook, you can go to Twitter, you can go to any other application on this phone, and it will keep playing in the background. Once you are done, you go back to the application, you keep viewing your video, and there's no lag, there's no nothing. It just keeps going. Overall, I think this phone is pretty solid. Nothing revolutionary, but what it's capable of doing, it does it, and it does it very well. I would not recommend this phone to an Android user or iPhone user to switch over to the BlackBerry's OS, as they might think it's a downgrade. But for those people who love BlackBerry's OS and love the company, I would honestly recommend this phone. It's still good for business, and it's good for someone who is not crazy about all those apps. I really enjoyed using this phone, but it's simply not the must-have phone of the year. I hope you guys enjoyed my review on the BlackBerry Z30, and if you want to review this phone or any other phone, make sure to go to wirefly.com. I was Carlos with Wirefly, and I will see you guys in the next video.